He is the CEO and publisher of the National Catholic Reporter. He is in my top three Catholics. And I love his take on things. He's very objective, I think, and reasonable in terms of, some of the realities that the Catholic Church faces and just the increasingly interesting world that religion faces. Let's say I put it that way. Here he is, Joe Ferullo, everybody, friend of the show. And
Mark, well, I am impressed that you know two other Catholics. That's wow. That's
I know many Catholics.
Oh, okay.
I know many Catholics. But you are in my top three. And you, with the National Catholic Reporter, are charged with keeping track of much of what's talked about by the Pope and many of the dispositions and challenges that the Catholic Church faces. Can we start with what's going on in the Middle East? And can I just ask you, has the Pope commented on it? And if so, what did he say?
Well, the Church has commented on it. The Cardinal Parolin, who's the Secretary of State for the state called the Vatican, has commented on the inappropriateness of the violence and the hostage taking and calling for peace. The Israel's ambassador to the Vatican issued a statement advising the Church to avoid making false parallels as they discuss this issue. And what he means is that the Church is often caught when it comes to Israel between a rock and a hard place, which is there are a lot of Christians on the Palestine side. And so there's usually a default toward the Palestinians with a lot of their human rights issues. And then, as you know, there's a very long history of the Church being very anti-Semitic, which didn't really begin to change until the 1960s. So the Church always walks a fine line when it deals with Israel in particular.
Yeah, I'm sure, the Israelis are still sensitive about, about a lot of church
Well,
history.
they should be.
Yeah. The Pope has done some things that would qualify him as making bold remarks. I'm thinking of what he said about the gay community, for example.
Right. No, he's been, from the beginning of his papacy, he's now in year 10. He has said things that are more welcoming. Very early in his papacy, on a papal trip on the plane, he told reporters, "Who am I to judge when it comes to homosexuality and gay men and women?" Which, for the Church is a remarkable thing. The Church's official policy is that homosexuality is a disorder, and it hasn't backed away from that. But Francis, in his way, has tried to move away from it by asking the Church to be more welcoming. Just recently, he sort of opened the door even further to the idea of gay couples going to a Catholic church to get a blessing, not a marriage ceremony. He made sure that to make that clear, but a blessing. And just threw that out there as something we should be discussing, which again, for the Church, is a big deal.
Is he viewed as a revolutionary as a result of this? What are there schisms within the Catholic Church generally as a result of something? I mean, what he says we kind of see in the developed Western world is sort of tepid. You know what I mean? As you say, he doesn't say that they can get married, blah, blah, I mean, it's, but I would imagine he is angering some Catholics.
Yeah, not globally, but in this country a lot. The U.S., fairly uniquely in the world, is against, and by U.S. I mean the U.S. Catholic leadership. So the bishops and the cardinals in the U.S. are fairly against this Pope, and there's sort of a MAGA sense to a lot of the church leadership in this country, and they're the ones that have brought up things like schisms, and he's a radical, and he's throwing away traditions of the church that have been around for thousands of years. You don't hear that as much, if at all, in other parts of the church, whether it's the West or in other areas.
There's that phenomenon that's talked about, the cafeteria Catholic, and I mean,
Right.
You take what you want for your life. I feel, frankly, it's talked about probably because it's alliterative, cafeteria Catholic. But it's pretty true. It's true of all religions, I think, or, people go, well, we do this, but we don't do that. We don't believe this, but we believe that. And some of the rituals you accept, some of the rituals you don't, et cetera. It's interesting how the Catholic Church is evolving. And now that you do this publication. I'm wondering how you see it evolving and like what the future of the church is.
Well, hard to know what the future of the church is. It's in decline in this country and throughout a bit of the West, but all organized religion is in decline throughout the West and in this country, even among evangelicals, not as greatly, but they're dipping downward. So there needs to be a sort of a rethink, I think, for what are religious leaders doing wrong. What they say is we're doing nothing wrong. We're saying what we've said for 2,000 years. It's you people who keep walking out of the church who are being bad. Um, but clearly, if you're not reaching your audience, you have to do something different. That's what the Pope is trying to do right now in Rome. It started a week ago and will go for the rest of this month. There's what's called a synod, basically a gathering of bishops from around the world. And they are looking at some of these topics. He's also added to this assembly a number of women for the first time and just regular lay Catholics, people in the pews, as he's invited to join. And they are sitting around a number of circular tables where they're supposed to discuss issues like, should women be priests? Or should they at least have a bigger role in the church? Should priests be allowed to marry? What do we do about gay Catholics? How do we give them a better welcome? Are we supposed to be welcoming to people in general? Isn't that what the whole idea of the faith is? What do we do about divorced Catholics? Why do we kick them out? Why don't we let them? Let's find a way to bring them back in. And that's Francis saying we should have a wider tent. Part of our problem is we in the hierarchy have been closing the door in the faces of a lot of people, and maybe we should stop.
How old is he? 85, is it?
He's 86.
86.
And yeah, and there are a lot of conservative Catholics in this country just counting the days, Mark, just counting the days. Yeah.
Joe, I don't want to pull rank on you because you're the real Catholic, but have you seen where they actually meet to select the next pope? Have you been inside that room? Because I have.
Well, if you're talking about the Sistine Chapel, yes, I have.
Well, it's a part of the Sistine Chapel, Joe. It's not. If you've only been to the main chapel, then you haven't been to the room where they actually select it.
You must give more money to the church than I do.
I love it. I've got more bragging rights than Joe Ferullo. Holy cow! It's a little room off the Sistine Chapel, and they're not allowed out by, as you must know this, by Catholic law until they've chosen the new priest, new pope. And I thought it was going to be this kind of lavish, kind of Trumpian, a lot of gold and red velvet and stuff. No, it's super downscale, man. It looks like a bad Airbnb. And they have a bathroom there, and I'm small B on bathroom. I mean, it is it's like a wooden thing. It's not glamorous. I know.
It's probably like a monk's cell, which like the whole idea is, no, you're not staying here long. We're going to make this as uncomfortable as possible. Other than walking on hot coals, we're going to make this really uncomfortable.
Exactly. They did. It is that. All right. I only have another minute or so, but I do want to ask you what's happening across the world, but certainly in this country. We're seeing more and more Catholic churches embattled by these sex abuse cases and the extension of the statute of limitations and such. They're declaring bankruptcy. They're avoiding responsibility that is at least financial responsibility in many creative ways.
Yeah, it's a very tough situation. The Archdiocese of Baltimore, which is the oldest one in the country, the oldest Catholic archdiocese, just declared bankruptcy, which was symbolically at least a very big deal. Many others have already, but it being the oldest. Look, Mark, it's a tough one for the church. They only have so much money. They run a number of I'll take the church position on this. They run a bunch of Catholic schools in urban areas that give people an inexpensive alternative, and a lot of parishes that serve poor communities, that do a lot of social services that a lot of cities can't. So how do you keep those things going in the face of all of these lawsuits when they extend the statute of limitations? It's a tough one to declare bankruptcy. My hope is that what they'll do is what several dioceses have been doing, which is they declare bankruptcy, but then continue negotiating with parents and loved ones and victims to come to some sort of agreement. If they don't, and they may not realize, these guys are not the sharpest PR people on the planet Earth, you may have realized. If they don't come to agreements that are acceptable, that'll become another disgrace. That'll become another scandal. So
yeah,
hopefully they won't hide behind it.
It's been their way, which is you sort of implied.
Yeah,
it's been their way to evade responsibility, and
right.
to embrace responsibility would go a long way to
Believe me,
broker
I mean,
some kind
look,
of.
you talk to cafeteria Catholics or absolute former Catholics, and what chased them out the door was those guys in leadership evading responsibility. Now, since what, 2000, 1999 or so, this thing became widely known among the public, and they've really done little. They've changed internal laws and guidelines so it may not happen again, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of just doing a mea culpa and telling everybody we were wrong, not really.
Joe, enjoy you, and love that you have made time to join us today, the National Catholic Reporter, Joe Ferullo, the CEO and publisher. And I guess after this meeting, maybe you'll have some other news for us. We'll watch for.
Let's talk again. I mean, we'll see if there's any progress. This is going to go on for about another year with another meeting in next October. So we'll see what this one does and what gets kicked down the road. But it'll be interesting.
Love it. Joe Ferullo, everybody. Thanks, Joe.
Take care, bro.
Yeah. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.